oxygen levels going down to a point twice where the doctors wanted to administer dexamethasone, which is a steroid. Tell us about that.
Yeah, let's back up first, George, though, about the oxygen that the president was giving in the White House. I want to underscore 2 liters nasal cannula oxygen. We are
with that audio.
Medical school. Most of that is, in fact, going into the room. So that is a really insignificant amount of supplemental oxygen. The other interesting thing for some medical context here with COVID-19 is it has been reported from the beginning of this pandemic that patients who don't saturate their blood oxygen levels with COVID-19, they tolerate it strangely very well, much better than patients who, in fact, are desaturating from other types of pneumonia. So now when you go into the treatment, George, the patients being given dexamethasone, there has been really good data out of the UK. This is the only drug that's shown a survival benefit in critically ill patients with COVID-19. Now, steroids given in that trial were given to patients who were on mechanical ventilation. So again, a demonstration of aggressive medical management by his team.
Did you hear everything you needed to hear from the president's team in this press conference?
Well, George, there's always a lot of information. If I were in the room with his medical team, I would want to know some more specific blood tests. I would want to know something called a D-dimer, various inflammatory markers. We heard that there were some imaging tests suggestive of lung involvement, not a surprise. That's the first organ system that can be involved with COVID-19. Now they're doing ultrasounds to evaluate the lungs for pneumonia, not just chest CAT scans and chest x-rays. So we want to know a little bit more about the imaging tests and the blood tests that are being done on a regular basis.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that with you. The doctor said that the president did well in the lung spirometry. I guess that's when you blow into the tube. But when he was talking about the CAT scan of the lungs, he said the findings were expected, but didn't go into any great detail. What are expected findings?
Yeah, so the imaging findings on CAT scan or chest x-ray or even lung ultrasound in patients with COVID-19 show kind of peripheral involvement in the lung field. So that's far away in the borders of the lungs. We see something called ground glass opacities. These are just the things that the radiologist would be looking for, and they can be mild, they could be severe. None of this is unexpected in someone of his age with this respiratory virus.
And was it expected, did you expect to hear that the president could be released as soon as tomorrow?
I'm not surprised by that, George. You and I have talked about the capacity inside the White House to provide pretty high-level medical care, treatment, management. Dexamethasone and the medications that the president is on right now can easily be given in the White House. Some of them are given for 5, 6, or even 10 days. Blood tests can be run at the White House. Extensive management, obviously, from a clinical standpoint, can be carried out in the White House environment. So that'll be a game-time decision made by his medical team.
Okay, let me bring in John Carl on the phone as well. It was pretty clear, John, that the commander was at pains to try to reconcile what he was saying today with the statements yesterday and the statements he made yesterday, which conflicted with the statements from the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows.
It was night and day, George. He actually came out with actual data. There was less spinning. He wanted to, come out and show that he was, I think, very deliberately making up for what happened yesterday. And let me remind you, George, Dr. Conley yesterday refused several times to answer the question about whether or not the president had been on oxygen. But at one point he said, and this is a direct quote, "Yesterday and today he was not on oxygen." Now we just learned again from Dr. Conley that in fact the president was on oxygen on Friday. Now that's just a basic fact, and he came out and he told us what seemed like a very serious and factual briefing. But it's such a problem when you have not just the political team at the White House, but the medical team at the White House come out and give a briefing with information that turns out to be flatly wrong. Hopefully this time he's given us information that is correct.
Yeah, he did. He was definitely trying to be more specific today, tried to answer the questions, although he did still say, he's trying to be as upbeat as he possibly can. On one level, you can understand that. On the other level, is that really the job of the president's physician when he's presenting the information publicly?
mean, at least even in doing that, he told us about the two very worrying episodes the president had, both on Friday and yesterday. But I think that from now on, throughout this process, there will always be a nagging question of, are they trying to spin the situation to be upbeat, to give the best possible description of what's happening, or are they giving us the cold hard facts? Today it seemed to be they were doing a little bit of each.
Right,
but we got the facts, and that's the important thing. You get the facts. He can say things are looking great, the president's, but we have the cold hard facts of what's happening.
Yeah, it was definitely clear he was trying to convey that today. I wanted to
Making a mountain out of a molehill.
Read as well. A bit of a crowd gathering there, Rachel.
Yeah, that's right, George. Lots of the president's supporters gathering at the gates of the Walter Reed Medical Center just right behind me. We've heard chants of USA, USA this morning. They're cheering, honking horns here, obviously wanting to wish the president well, want to see him back at the White House soon, and we're learning today that could be as early as tomorrow. But there is this growing list of White House officials and advisors that have now tested positive for the virus, including that cluster in the Rose Garden for the president's ceremony of his Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett. We know the latest, just Nick Luna, the president's personal assistant and body man who travels with the president, tested positive. Now 8 people that attended that Rose Garden ceremony have tested positive for the virus, including former Governor Chris Christie, who obviously works here at ABC News as a contributor. He tested positive, is now in the hospital, and I'm struck by something that Chris Christie told you and Cecilia Vega on GMA. He was inside of the room when the president was preparing for that debate. 5 of the 9 people inside that room have now tested positive for the virus, George, and he told both of you that no one was wearing a mask.
Right, and we had Jason Miller, the president's senior campaign advisor, on the program this morning saying that the president was encouraging people to wear masks in that phone call he had with Jason that Jason reported on earlier today on This Week. What other activity are we expecting from the president today? It seemed like he had a pretty steady stream of phone calls yesterday, and we saw that video that he released last night.
He did, George, and he also spoke with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell yesterday, who again reiterated that the president was in good spirits. Look, the White House has made clear that the president is still working, that the president is still in charge. Yesterday they released photos of the president behind the desk. Obviously, the president wanting to address the American people himself after that press conference with his medical team, telling the American people that he is on the road to recovery, though he did say that he's not out of the woods just yet. The president said the real test will be over the next few days, but obviously he could be back at the White House as early as tomorrow.
A whole caravan of Trump supporters behind her.
They say he continues to improve, is being treated now with steroids and remdesivir, and they're hoping, they say, that he can be released from the hospital as early as tomorrow. We're going to return to our regular programming. Have a good afternoon.
There you have it. That was a special report.